Like there's more crediting of choreographers happening on TikTok than in the commercial space, honestly, right?
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Brendan Bradley with the Fifth Wall Forum, committed to bringing together industry insiders from the theater and technology worlds to create opportunities for new kinds of virtual performance. And today I'm having a conversation with Brandon Powers, a creative director and choreographer who creates seamless, visceral experiences at the intersection of theater, dance, and technology across physical and virtual space. Today's conversation is brought to you by the Fifth Wall Forum Discord channel, a robust community of hundreds of technologists and artists sharing job postings, tutorials, upcoming performances, and the home of Artifact Friday, where our mentors and collaborators share artifacts from their work, giving Fifth Wall Forum members a first glimpse at the latest in innovation and immersive storytelling. Find out more at our website at fifthwallforum.com. That's 5THWALLFORUM.com. And now let's get to the conversation. Welcome, Brandon.
Thank you so much, Brendan. It's great to be here.
Thanks for being here with me. I feel like we've had so many conversations over the last year. You were one of the people that I talk the most to, not just with the Fifth Wall Forum, but I feel like I come to you for advice, inspiration, education, empowerment all the time.
That's very kind. I guess that is a fun, magical circumstance of this past, 18 months is that we've been able to come together and collaborate a ton, even though we're not in the same physical location.
You mentioned you're visiting Los Angeles at some point soon, and that we've never met in real life, which feels bizarre because we spend so much time talking together. I only know you through this two-dimensional screen of chatting with you, working with you, collaborating with you. Back me up into your early introduction into integrating technology into live performance.
Absolutely, yeah. And as I said, I'm very excited to get to meet fully three-dimensional Brendan next week. So my kind of journey into this XR performance world really feels like it's all of the things that I love for the past all of my life, especially honestly as a young kid coming to a head. And it's all starting to just make a lot of sense. And only really when I take those moments to reflect and look back, do I realize, oh, I grew up like being really excited about video games and being subscribed to Nintendo Power like every cool millennial, and was like really deep into magic, and I like performed magic tricks at my dad's like law firm, and I called myself Brandon the Magnificent.
Oh,
and
we should
really
keep
loved
that.
Like,
oh, that's maybe a rebrand.
yeah, there you go.
I got to redo the intro.
And that should be one of my social media handles. And only now am I realizing, as I'm trying to create these worlds and create these experiences across all sorts of different platforms and mediums, that all of that makes a ton of sense. Beyond that, my background really started in dance, in hip hop actually, which merged into jazz and classical modern. I was really introduced to choreography and directing at an early age, thanks to public school arts education, and then my opportunities in high school where I got to actually direct and choreograph. Moving into college, kind of continuing to explore that, getting more involved in devising work, collaborative theater practices. I created actually this first kind of intersection of tech and performance at the end of my time in college, where I was doing this project about actually a Malaysian airline disappearance that happened several years ago. And I was really taken by that story, and I guided folks via cell phone text messages throughout the campus, where they then found a memorial dance performance on our abandoned parking lot that was under construction.
Wow.
And that's where I started to really see how my passions for technology and my experience in performance were actually able to come together, and the work didn't just have to be about the tech, it could actually also include it in its creation.
So the piece I know about from your past the most is Queer Skins. Is that one of the works that you're talking about?
Yes. So Queer Skins ARC is a VR experience that I had the opportunity to collaborate on that premiered at the Venice International Film Festival this past year. It was a part of Tribeca and Cannes XR as well.
Heard of it.
Heard of it. And it is a part of the multi-episode kind of transmedia narrative Queer Skins, which was created by Ilya Silyak and Cyril Sobolski, and unpacks the story of Sebastian and his family. And Sebastian is a young gay man at the height of the AIDS epidemic who dies from AIDS. And you see throughout this story kind of how his family was deeply religious and from the Christian South of the United States, dealing with, their homophobia and how he fits into their family and what it means for him, to be gay and then to pass away from AIDS. And in Arc, the second episode, the story actually picks up from right after Sebastian's funeral, and you're entering this moment with his mother who finds his diary. And it starts in this 360 format. And then once she finds the diary and starts to read it, you kind of fall into the diary memory with her. And it transforms itself into a fully 6DoF volumetric captured experience that we partnered together with Intel Studios to create. And that really allowed us to create not just this amazing memory scene, but then a dance, which tells kind of, I like to call it like jumping through the journal pages of his life, right? With him and his boyfriend. And you begin this dance as you're watching them with these different memories, and it's fully interactive and changing in real time depending on how you move through the space. And so everyone's going to have a different experience, both in the order of these different dance segments coming together, as well as the way it moves around you. And it was really exciting for me to flex my kind of immersive dance muscles and to put forth these ideas of, hey, we can actually understand how to move people through space, as I'm talking about, and we can take care of your body and really create this amazing kind of dance between these pre-recorded figures and the user in real time.
So, I mean, not to lean too heavily on the pun, but how do you then balance the dance between bringing the embodiment design to influence the asset generation and creation for the world or for the narrative versus taking existing assets or worlds and trying to bring thoughtful embodiment design to something pre-existing or prefabricated?
So I think that it could just be really powerful if we start from the movement first, right? And we say, we understand that our visitor and headset is going to be moving. So let's actually think about how we want them to feel and then design really everything just around that. Because if we go the other way, right? And if we say, hey, we have these assets, now we're just going to start placing them, we're actually basing them on a lot of 2D UX practices and some, beginning burgeoning 3-dimensional UX practices that come from game design and other places, which can be really great. And I'm not looking down on people that have been doing this work for a very long time, but they haven't been actually asking people to move their body ever before, unless maybe they worked for Nintendo for the Wii or PlayStation Move or something, right? And that I think it's just important for us to say that and say, this is a spatial medium. This is an embodied medium in VR and AR as well. And so because of that, in the way that the controller is the center of the gravity force when you're doing a console experience, the body is now the centerpiece. And so unless we actually treat the body as the centerpiece, I think we're just starting in the wrong stratosphere. There was this project called NFL Like a Kiss, which was this immersive theater experience that I built all about online profiles and online dating and how they create fractured senses of self. An audience would follow these different dancers through our venue. And then I had the opportunity to collaborate a lot with Lance Weiler, Rachel Ginsberg, and Nick Fertungo over at the Columbia University Digital Storytelling Lab, where I had the opportunity to really get deeper into solving these challenging questions around how we can put technology into performance, and worked on this piece called Frankenstein AI that went to Sundance in 2018. And there I built a performance with them that had dance as a representation of the machine learning process and created this whole new dance vocabulary that had a live, interactive, audience-driven experience where the AI and the audience were shifting our dancers' work in real time.
That's amazing.
That's a whole rabbit hole we could go down. And that's when I was like, hey, I have a feeling that I could be good at this, honestly. I was just like, I think my skill set is the right skill set for this XR world that's building. And that really changed my life.
You talk a lot about how important it is to bring dancers or physical movement or just an idea of embodiment and awareness of embodiment into this work. Can you talk a little bit about where that philosophy comes from and where you really see it going in these emerging mediums?
Totally. So as a dance maker, I'm really passionate about transforming the way we move humans through space and really thinking about how we as humans have feelings when we move. Movement elicits emotion, right? And that's something I feel we often forget at many parts of our life, especially in immersive performance, when we're asking our audiences to move their bodies. And I believe that we should be asking our audiences to move their bodies because it's a really powerful tool, but then we don't remember that those movements create really specific imprints on our memory that can be really triggering of all sorts of different experiences and feelings inside people.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, it's like of that kind of imprint, right? So, or feeling, right? So there's this idea that I've kind of put forward where I call it embodiment design. If, for example, you wanted folks to relate to a moment in your performance or specifically in VR where I think it can be really useful, you are seeing this montage, this big love montage, and you want them to be actually connected to the characters and not just see something and react, but actually also feel like maybe they're floating through space, right? Or that there's this sensation of freedom, right? So we can actually design movement that makes them feel free in order to do that, right? And so I promote this embodiment design practice where we're essentially designing from the inside out instead of just asking our folks in headsets to slash their arms or to kind of reach out because that's where the UI person decided to put the graphic, or character, but actually choreograph the movement of these assets so that they're moving us in a way that's productive and actually makes us feel good in our body. And we can even use practices that I center on, which is around Laban movement analysis. And Rudolf Laban was a really renowned choreographer and dance leader at the beginning of the last century. And he taught us a lot about how to quantify and think about movement. And so he has different types of analyses and vocabulary that we can use to say, this is what floating feels like actually in a very fundamental way. And that's how we can translate it into movement for the visitor and headset. And that's some of the stuff that I actually got to teach at your lab in the fall, and it was very fun to work with students on.
Tell me about working in the lab. Again, this is something that I built at NYU, but I have kind of a hands-off approach from, so I kind of find cool people to go in and teach students and blow their minds. I wish I could take the class, but I don't get to take the class. So tell me about the experience of bringing some of this work into more of a traditional, or with air quotes, traditional curriculum.
It was awesome. Just straight up, it was awesome for a lot of different reasons. One, beyond all of this creation work that I do, right? I'm really passionate about being a builder of community and someone who's looking to really transform these ideas, like just in the way of like some of these concepts we were just talking about. And a big part of that is talking to other people about it and teaching it, especially to this next generation of creators. And as someone who moved from theater into more tech-driven work, I feel very fortunate of all the people that talk to me to bring me into the space. And so I want to pay that forward as much as I possibly can, because I know how much it really changed my life when folks said to me, you have the skill set, you are great, like you are right for this community, come on in, right? And so I want to do that as much as possible. And so to have the chance to do that with undergraduate, mostly theater students, we also had a game design student, which is amazing for that kind of cross-disciplinary conversation. And for me to say, hey, I was where you were not too long ago. Let's use your, viewpoints training, for example, something I know they were all taught at NYU, right? And say, or the Laban work that I was just talking about, they had learned that from someone else. So it was great to pick up where their teachers had started and say, hey, that stuff you're learning is really useful in this space as well. I'm just asking you to frame it slightly differently or use it with this headset on, right? All of a sudden. It was also extremely clarifying to be able to teach this work as I'm kind of essentially codifying it as we go, right? It's all very new and we're learning it as I'm discovering it and as I work with other projects and we're seeing what works. And so to teach it allowed me to formalize it a bit more and allowed us to work through like examples and exercises to unpack it so I can make sure it's really clear for folks.
I don't think it's an anomaly that you were in kind of a educational mode, because you have cultivated your own community and kind of educational platform on TikTok. You are known as the theater dad on TikTok to many. You have 1.6 million likes across your videos. And what I love about your work is it's everything from showing as a professional how you might approach the work to also then pointing out other incredible work being done by artists, both professional and amateurs, and then also giving advice, giving feedback, answering comments, getting knowledge and information and insight out there to people that are approaching the arts or dance or just in general a career for the first time. Can you talk to what it's been like to build this incredible resource and community on an unexpected site like TikTok?
It's been really awesome to have the opportunity to meet what is mostly young people through TikTok and to learn from them and to have them be excited about the work I'm trying to share with them. Ultimately, I love showing process. And a lot of my work and who I think I am in the universe really revolves on this idea that I want to pull back the curtain on what it takes to make a piece of theater and what it takes to make dance even more specifically. I think a lot of people think choreography just falls from the sky, and I'm fascinated by that. And it's like really specific. Like sometimes with theater, people kind of get it because they're like know their school play, but dance, just like people think it just appears. In the same way, I think if people think about like songwriting, you can't really quite imagine what it means to write a song. Like, where did that idea come from, right? You're like, if that's not your medium. And so to be able to pull back the curtain and show people, hey, this is me in the studio, this is me making a piece, here's me now explaining why I made that gesture, everything I'm doing and how I'm moving is a choice, is a lot of fun for me. And it's exciting to see other people get excited about it as well. And I love helping uplift folks as much as I can as well. Not only, hey, they're really great, but also here's why they're great. You know, I want to continually take a critical, not with a negative connotation, approach to all of what I'm doing on TikTok, because I'm also just fascinated by the platform itself and the opportunities there. And I want to keep reminding folks of that what's happening is very special and is fundamentally shifting the way audiences interact with entertainment for the rest of time. Like, I think it's like it's like, I really believe where it's that fundamental of a shift.
Why?
Yeah. So it really comes down to this idea of community. You know, even more specifics, you could go down and actually have an article, maybe we'll link in show notes to it, about why musical theater is changing because of TikTok. And it's this idea of community and the way we're interacting with the content, which is completely different from other social media platforms, even in the way that they also shifted just in the kind of democratization of content creators, right? Anyone can upload, anyone can be a star. We have that, but we have it on steroids and with this new community aspect, which isn't quite as pungent as it is on TikTok, where on TikTok, you have the opportunity to duet, to react, to stitch, to inside the platform, be a part of that creation process in a way that we really haven't seen before on social media. But the way I like to think about it is that we're mixing together folk culture and meme culture. And that's what TikTok is, right? And it's this ancient idea of retelling stories, right? It's like the Odyssey 2021 edition.
Right.
It is extremely Homeric. We're used to, as a species, telling stories over and over again, but maybe slightly changing them, and they're changing in different cultural contexts. It depends on who tells it and how you tell it. And TikTok is just that with an algorithm, right? So you're supercharging that creativity and people can get involved. And so the audience now, in my opinion, is going to expect that interactivity with the content, right? With the work. And for all artists should be really paying attention to that, because it's not enough, in my opinion, just to put something out and hope people like it and then want to buy tickets to it. They want to know how it was made, why it was made. They want to be in the room where it was made, in the way that many of these amazing TikTok musicals are born out of people going live and just writing the song in front of you. That's what people want now. And they're going to not just want it, they're going to expect it.
Do you find that that hunger for process, for incubation, for discovery, for participation, for interaction also brings a culture of appreciation and value of the work? Like you were saying, choreographers don't just fall out of the sky. Do we sense now people are doing 50 takes of a dance piece to try to nail it on TikTok, that it brings an appreciation for the art form?
I think that there's might be a little bit of mystery about the time it takes, right? And that's a challenge of social media, right? And can be a problem, frankly, right? Because there's this like perfect image of the product that gets put forth.
Right.
On TikTok, I don't think it's as bad as Instagram because there's this really intense desire to be authentic on TikTok, and you see lots of different types of creators have success with different levels of quote unquote production value, right? Or that kind of perfection that is kind of mandated on Instagram. And we've kind of seen a backlash to that, which I think TikTok's allowing, you know, artists to really feel like they can thrive in. I do think there's a better appreciation for the process now because people are inside it, right? They're understanding how long it's taking. They're watching their favorite writer write a show or their favorite musician make an album, and they're constantly saying, you know, where's the album? When's the album? When's the album? You know, and they realize it takes 6 months or more. Like it takes time. Like, I know you want the album, but that's great, right? It shows people want it and they can interact with you, and hopefully are learning a little bit about, you know, that process.
Not to make it all about TikTok, but there does, with this kind of new approach to the work and the participatory duetting nature of it and the contributing nature of it, comes a question of, if we're making entertainment products, there is the question of ownership. What, in kind of your early interactions in this kind of fluid approach to copyright, where do you see that headed as far as if we co-create the next great musical? How do we sell and monetize that if either everybody owns it or nobody owns it?
Yeah, it's a major challenge, and it's something that, you know, is very much also on the palette of conversation right now, and it's exciting to see that the TikTok community wants to have this conversation, and they want creators to get their due. And there's been some lawsuits already, and there's been a lot of pushback. It's very connected to the same controversy with dances that were then put into Fortnite and copyright around that. And copyright in dance specifically is very complicated, actually.
Right.
And it's very hard to get a dance owned in that way. And there's this idea on TikTok too, right, where because you can't copyright a social dance, so what we're doing on TikTok, like, are these social dances?
Oh, is this social
right?
dance?
Because we're all doing them and we all learn very specific moves, and then suddenly you can't own it, maybe.
So I don't know, just to go down this rabbit hole with no idea or agenda, because I grapple with this. So do you believe, as a creator, that ultimately what you, capital O, own is the process, is your approach and process and ideation and iteration, rather than the ultimate, capital P, product?
So I feel strongly as a choreographer and someone's like making stuff that someone else can do, right? That I own that choreography, right? Okay. I think that it's not okay that, like, just because it's something you do with your body, it's any different than like someone writing down on words, right? Which, like, there's this sense that like it's copyrightable the minute it's like notated, but it's like, to me,
right, I'm
a writer. Like, I express that a lot when I'm talking about my work. You know, like, I'm a writer. My medium is my body. It's not a pen, right? So I don't see a difference. And I think that, you know, we need to figure that out. And there are lots of the conversations being had, like the Renegade dance, for example, which was choreographed by Julia Harmon. She wasn't originally credited, and it kind of launched a lot of the careers of like Addison Rae and Charli D'Amelio. And they were getting all the fame, and they were, you know, young white women versus the young black woman.
Wow.
Luckily, there was such kind of an outcry from the community that Charli actually ended up doing a really great thing and like invited Julia to like perform the dance like along with her at the NBA All-Star game. And there was this amazing New York Times piece written about it. And that really set into motion this sense that like we as a community are not going to let this happen. And even though it has a little bit, people like call it out, which is pretty cool. That there's an online community.
That's great.
Which are typically like super toxic, that says like, no, like, whose dance is this? This is not your dance, or what? And I'm hopeful that people see that moving forward, and that especially because it's a younger audience, that they're now again going to expect this new level of credit. Like, there's more crediting of choreographers happening on TikTok than in the commercial space. Honestly, right? You don't know who any of people that, like, choreograph music videos or commercials, because they like get paid to like take their names off of it.
Right.
So it's pretty cool that on TikTok that's happening more readily.
So this is a masterclass in the work that is kind of public facing and the community that's being built. I want to, as you said, draw the curtain back and get into some of the work that you've been doing somewhat behind the scenes over the last couple of months. You've been working on Chronicle X at the Shed in New York City, which is something that I feel like I only know peripherally because of all the amazing artists you've brought together and seen little glimpses and moments here and there. But I'd love to know more information about that project and that process.
Absolutely. I'm an associate producer also at Musical Theater Factory, which is an artist service organization here in New York City that is dedicated to serving artists that are creating new musical theater that deconstructs oppressive ideologies. And part of the work that I do at Musical Theater Factory is also leading a new program that's called MTF XR, which is all about creating new musical theater with XR. And so that's where all these things start to come together, which is really incredible. And I feel extremely lucky that the leadership at MTF was excited by my vision of the future in the form of what theater can be. And I was talking to lots of other folks at other institutions about it at conferences and stuff. And then I said, hey, why don't we build the thing I keep trying to convince other people to build? And they said, hell yeah, let's do it. And we just finished our first full year of programming. We're heading into our second. We're funded by the National Endowment of the Arts, who have been incredibly supportive of the program and of me as a kind of leader of this space. It also just further shows that they, as an institution, which I'm excited to call out here, want to solve these issues of how we're going to merge technology and performance. And
Wow.
They understand that they're a big player in that. But I work there, and we have a resident artist program called the Maker Program. And one of our makers is our MTF XR maker, Nia Witherspoon. And Nia is an unbelievable writer, actress, director, and created Chronicle X, which is a part of this amazing trilogy, the Dark Girl Chronicles. And it had a presentation at the Shed, which, if you are not in New York City, is this absolutely massive, epic institution that is now a part of the Hudson Yards complex. And we were able to partner with them as well as Here Art Center to present one part of this trilogy, Chronicle X, over at the Shed last month in June. And that piece, as our XR maker with Nia, involved a lot of XR techniques and components, specifically volumetric video and augmented reality. And it was really great to do the work of what I've been talking about over the last 30 minutes of bringing the artists and the technologists together, introducing people to the technology that have never done it before,
Right.
and say, okay, now we're actually going to build your project and we're going to actually make the thing. And it was a really great case study for us in our first year to say, hey, not only did we do all these amazing educational programs throughout the year, but then we actually went into the trenches and made a piece and created fantastic work that was designed by Sada S.B. Proctor and included a tilt brush work by Juliana Lowe and some great work in Unity by Sammy Swords, and was presented with this app called Blink by Blinksel. And all of these folks actually came together through the 5WF Discord, and it really showed off that we are the center of this community. And I was able to say, hey, I need this, I need that, who's down? And it felt great to be able to say, hey, I'm going to pay you to do your work. And like, let's actually do the thing we've just been talking about. There's a lot more information, and we have a great video online as well. Maybe we'll drop that in the show notes of a glimpse of what that AR component, which was both pre-show and during the performance, looked like.
That's amazing. So you heard it here. I talk about the Fifth Wall Forum Discord channel at the top of every podcast as a resource for job postings, for insights, for education, for tutorials. And here Brandon is just finding amazing technologists and artists to come together and collaborate on projects using that Discord. So please join our community there, because it's a great place to get involved in projects, but also learn about the projects that are happening. I'd love to ask, as somebody who is scouring for resources, talent, collaborators, what is something that your team or you currently need to overcome that next hurdle in your process?
Sure. So MTF specifically, and thinking about Chronicle X, we're really excited about that piece growing. We think it's ready to take its next step. We kind of went above and beyond, I think, the expectations of this 2-night event at the Shed. And so we're excited about other theater venues that want to present the work, or technology partners as well that want to help bring the AR components up, even if there's ways to create more interactivity and more of an immersive nature once we're able to actually move our audiences in a more safe way. I think more in general as well, I always just like to call out that, whether you're an artist or you're a funder or work at a tech company, it's like we need folks to just kind of speak out and step up and, say, okay, if this is something I can fund, like, let's go and like trust the artist, trust the artist to do their work. And there's a lot of people out there that want to make new stuff and have the experience to do it. And I think we can trust people to really take that leap. And that's what I know I'm certainly looking for now for a lot of different things.
So if somebody wants to take that leap, how do they get in touch with you?
You can reach out to me through my website, which is brandon-powers.com. I'm extremely active on Twitter, probably way too much. And that's at bpowtweets, as in like BPOW tweets. Of course, you can find me on TikTok for a very different brand of conversation. Maybe you have a niece that's really into musical theater and they want to hang out with me. That's cool. But it's for adults too. I shouldn't say that's for adults too. We're aging up. We're aging up the audience right now, being transparent. That's at Brandon_Powers. But at the end of the day, I love having these conversations. I love trying to help bring people together, bring more people into the fold. So I'm always down to just talk about it and see, where you think you might fit into all of the different types of landscapes that we, covered today.
Well, I am always down to talk to you as well, because it is always completely mind-blowing, as well as just a delight. You're a delightful creator, a delightful human, and thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Brendan. You do an amazing job with this podcast, and we're so thankful for you at 5WF. That needs to stay in the podcast.
Okay. Thanks so much to Brendan Powers for the conversation. If you want to join me on the show, find me online at the handle Brendan A. Bradley, or go to fifthwallforum.com to find out more. I'm Brendan Bradley, wishing you a happy Friday, and I'll see you next time.